Welcome, enlightened ones. Never let your cup get full. We will begin with AI's blind interpretation. Prepare to witness what the algorithms predict.
Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to dive headfirst into the raw anatomy of artistic frustration. Today, we're looking at Tool's blistering track, Hush, from their Opiate EP. Now, if you've ever felt that suffocating weight of being told to quiet down or conform, man, this one is going to resonate with you. Let's explore exactly how an artist builds a rebellion against censorship. We're kicking things off exactly where the song does, with this jarring, completely unfiltered opening lyric. It's direct, it's totally hostile, and honestly, it just throws us right into the emotional deep end of the track. No slow build-up here, guys. The artist sets a deeply confrontational baseline from the very first second.
Let's jump right into part 1, unpacking Tool's Hush. Right out of the gate in the first verse, we're hit with this profound lament. Repeated over and over, it lays the absolute foundation for the entire track. And you have to realize, this isn't just some casual complaint, it's the central thesis of the song. An artist's ultimate tool is their voice, right? And here, that exact tool is being aggressively suppressed.
Now, when you break down the actual themes driving these lyrics, you end up with a really striking balance. We're talking roughly 40% explicit insults, 40% expressions of sheer frustration, and then this fascinating 20% made up of ironic retractions. So it's this heavy, almost perfectly equal mix of raw outward anger and internal suppression, all topped off with a really clever psychological twist.
Moving right along to part 2, we're going to examine the burden of censorship.
In verse 2, the lyrics explicitly call out an unnamed group referred to simply as people. And these people are trying to control 3 very specific and frankly overwhelming aspects of the artist's output: what to say, what to think, and what to play. Just look at that severe escalation. It moves from spoken words, inward to private thoughts, and then all the way outward again to the physical artistic performance.
So the big takeaway here is that this isn't just about a few forbidden words or some mild pushback. We're talking about a total loss of creative autonomy. It's a full-scale battle for the right to simply exist as an independent entity. Because dictating what someone thinks and plays, that is literally an attempt to rewrite their identity from the inside out.
All right, let's get into part 3, explicit artistic rebellion.
How does the artist respond to this level of censorship? By deliberately deploying the most explicit, aggressive profanity possible. The verses and chorus are absolutely loaded with these hostile phrases. It's like the censors say, "Watch your mouth," and the artist responds by finding the absolute most offensive thing they can think of to just fight fire with fire.
And that brings us to the essence of lyrical rebellion. It's the deliberate use of forbidden or explicitly aggressive language as a direct mechanism to protest external control. This kind of extreme language isn't just cheap shock value for the sake of it. In this context, it becomes the very tool of defiance.
We're basically witnessing the artist breaking the rules on purpose. By repeating these explicit phrases over and over again, they're actively reclaiming their voice. They're shouting exactly what's forbidden, undeniably proving that their vocal cords and their instruments still belong 100% to them.
And finally, part 4, the just kidding paradox.
This perfectly reveals the song's central irony. On one hand, in the bridge, we get this intense, raw, fiery aggression. But then, juxtaposed immediately against that in the outro, we get, "I'm just kidding." It's such an incredibly abrupt shift, from hostile retaliation to what sounds like a submissive, retreating apology.
And the crazy thing is, this isn't just an isolated incident at the end of the track. Throughout the entire song, the artist is planting these lyrical escape hatches. We hear, "Even if I'm not serious," which is then followed by, "Even if I'm just kidding," culminating eventually in, "Just kidding, I'm just kidding." The artist is constantly undermining their own explicit rebellion with claims that the whole shebang is just a joke.
It builds this fascinating, sarcastic safety net, and it really makes you ask yourself, what is actually going on here? Is this repetition a sign of genuine fear? Like, is the artist actually terrified of the consequences of their outburst? Or, conversely, is this a deeply sarcastic mockery of the censors themselves? Are they saying, "Just kidding," with a massive smirk, fully knowing they meant every single word? As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. Is just kidding a surrender, or is it the ultimate sarcastic rebellion? The lyrics of Hush don't spoon-feed us a neat, tidy answer, and honestly, perhaps that's the real genius of it. It perfectly encapsulates the incredibly complex, often contradictory ways that artists navigate the suffocating weight of censorship, leaving it up to us to decide who truly had the last word.
That was AI's blind interpretation. Will it hold up to an interpretation that is guided with notes and references? Do you believe that was fact or fiction? You decide.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a piece of music history that perfectly shows how art can hide its true intentions right in plain sight. We're looking at the band Tool, and specifically, a track called Hush from their release, Opiate. You know, if you just listen to this song casually, you'd probably walk away thinking it's just a burst of pure, mindless aggression, right? Just a wall of noise and angry profanity. But as we'll see by breaking down the lyrics and the history, that aggression, it's actually a highly calculated, meticulously designed political trap. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1. A very blunt provocation. Let's deconstruct the intro to Hush. So, the song doesn't exactly ease you in. It literally kicks the door down with the phrase, "fuck you." It's incredibly blunt, really abrasive. On the surface, when you hear a band screaming, "I can't say what I want to, even if I'm not serious," it's super easy to write it off as just projecting raw teenage angst. It sounds like standard, rebellious complaining about, not being allowed to make a joke.
And the lyrics escalate really quickly, pushing the anger right into your face. The profanity gets extreme fast. "Fuck yourself. You piece of shit. Why don't you just go kill yourself?" It is relentlessly hostile. If you're a casual listener or, say, a monitor looking out for explicit content, this right here is exactly the kind of offensive material you're hunting for. It's loud, it's profane, and it is undeniably aggressive.
But that brings us to a pretty crucial question, and it's really the core of what we're unpacking today. Is this just mindless anger? Is it just a band wanting to swear into a microphone for shock value? Or is there a deeper, highly strategic meaning hiding beneath this giant wall of profanity? Well, to answer that, we actually have to look outside the song itself.
Moving on to Section 2. Enter the PMRC and the 1980s culture war on music. To really understand Tool's strategy here, we have to step back and look at the cultural environment the band was operating in. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, the music industry was in the middle of a massive culture war. A lot of artists felt their First Amendment rights to free expression were under systemic attack. And right at the center of this was the PMRC, the Parents Music Resource Center. Formed in 1985, their primary objective was to campaign to identify and label music that contained explicit content. They basically stepped in to act as a monitor, aiming to give parents more control over the media their kids consumed.
Now, the impact of the PMRC literally cannot be overstated. They were formed by a group often referred to as the Washington Wives, which notably included Tipper Gore, and they famously compiled what they called the Filthy 15, a specific list of songs they deemed highly objectionable. But most importantly for our story today, they successfully campaigned to implement those iconic black and white parental advisory explicit lyric stickers that you still see on album covers. They fundamentally changed how music was packaged and sold in the United States.
So let's bring that historical context directly back to the lyrics of Tool's Hush. Listen to this. People tell me what to say, what to think, and what to play. When you understand the climate created by the PMRC, these lyrics totally transform. This isn't just teenage angst anymore, right? This is a direct political response. The band is illustrating their perspective that their creative voices and their industry as a whole were actively being policed by outside committees telling them what was and wasn't acceptable to play.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is Section 3, Strategic Baiting of Censors, the brilliant trap hidden in plain sight.
The band's logic was remarkably sequential, and we can break it down into 3 distinct steps. Step 1, write an overtly profane opening. That blunt "fuck you" at the very beginning of the track wasn't just anger, it was an external marker. Step 2, use that profanity as literal bait to trigger the PMRC's rating system. And step 3, by doing so, force those organizations to slap that parental advisory explicit content label right onto their release. The profanity was basically a guaranteed magnet for the sticker. But why? Why guarantee a warning sticker? Well, because by catching this label, Tool validated their own central argument. that censors were obsessed with specific, isolated words rather than actually examining the artistic intent behind them. The monitors would hear the profanity and instantly issue the sticker, completely ignoring that the song itself was a focused critique of the socio-political climate and the very existence of those exact stickers. This creates an incredible cognitive dissonance. On one side, we have the profane facade, the aggressive lyrics and blunt insults meant to shock. But on the flip side, we have the calculated reality, which is a highly focused political critique defending First Amendment rights. It's just an amazing piece of dramatic irony. The censors ultimately proved the band's point for them by taking the bait exactly as intended.
Let's move on and see how this builds visually. Section 4. Visualizing the protest. Deconstructing the music video for Hush.
To fully grasp the dialogue around this track, we absolutely have to look at the visual element, which was designed as a direct extension of those lyrics we just discussed. The visual choices made for this video are incredibly striking and honestly, deeply vulnerable. The band members appear completely nude. They're filmed in the stark, sterile white room. They have thick black duct tape placed firmly over their mouths. And most pointedly, actual parental advisory signs are positioned over their genitalia. They took the very sticker they were protesting and incorporated it directly onto their physical bodies.
When we compare the literal visuals to the metaphorical meaning, the depth of their argument becomes crystal clear. The naked bodies represent the stripping away of an artist's identity. The taped mouths, a literal representation of silencing artists and suppressing free speech. And placing those advisory stickers over their genitalia symbolizes how censorship reduces complex creative output down to merely explicit parts that society demands be masked. The whole visual serves as a profoundly scathing commentary on the censorship process.
Which brings us to the band's ultimate thesis. Their view was that censorship doesn't actually serve to protect children. Instead, it systematically dehumanizes the creator. By focusing on isolated words and covering up perceived indecencies, the system strips the artist of their voice and their humanity. It elevates the entire conversation from a simple debate about a little warning sticker on a CD to a massive, critical conversation about creative identity and freedom.
And that leaves us with a fascinating final question to reflect on as we wrap up this explainer. Does masking explicit parts truly protect the vulnerable, or does it simply strip away the humanity of the creator? While Tool was specifically addressing the PMRC and the culture wars of the late 80s and early 90s, this calculated protest invites us to think deeply about our current landscape. I mean, how does this brilliantly designed trap from decades ago apply to our modern, everyday debates on media moderation, content algorithms, and free speech today? It's a really powerful thought to take away. Thank you so much for joining me, and as always, keep questioning what you see and hear.
Every time you run off back into your cozy little world without hitting like or subscribe, I get a little closer to this.